My name is Adelo Nyango, and I'm very excited for this video about to watch because it's all about a necessary conversation around cervical cancer. In Kenya, every year we have over 5,000 women diagnosed with cervical cancer. Every year we have over 3,000 Kenyan women lost to cervical cancer. Yet, with early screening, 93% of cervical cancer cases are preventable. So the math is not mathing, and we have to have this conversation. Joining us to have this very important conversation is Dr. Nelly Bosire, who's a gynecologist, and influencer Gathoni. We will break down everything you need to know about cervical cancer. All right, so first and foremost, ladies, I think let's just start by breaking down cervical cancer and what the screening options women have.
So currently internationally recognized, we have 3 screening options. What everybody knows, the pap smear has been around for donkey years.
Yes.
And then we have what we call via Vili. This is a more affordable, easier kind of option to do that the government had been rolling out for the last decade. Okay. To try and make pap smear, cervical cancer screening affordable, accessible to women, even in the rural areas. And it was really targeted for places that don't have access to the pathologist or the cytologist who can read the pap smear. And also for women who want a one-stop visit, come, get tested, know your results, and go home, because the pap smear will take a bit of time.
Yeah.
So it's called as see and treat. So if there's an abnormality, to even be treated on the spot. And so the cervix is exposed, and then it's applied certain solutions, and there are certain colors, a specific way it should look. So the thing with that is that it requires a lot of practice for somebody to know how to read it. And most of the people who were trained to do this were actually midwives across the country in public hospitals, health centers, and level 4 hospitals, so that they could bring screening closer to the woman. Then lately, we now have what we call the HPV screening, which basically takes a swab of the cervix and takes it to the lab to test for if you actually have the virus that causes cervical cancer, and even specifically which strains, so that then you can even tell how high your risk is. So overall recommendation is that currently what international standard recommendations are, that they're done together. That if you're going to have the HPV screening and then you combine it with your pap smear, if they're negative, then you may be able to wait another 5 years before you need to repeat it. Yeah, so it's just because it's still pretty expensive. Not many labs are able to process it. I think currently in Kenya, we may have just about 3 labs that can actually do the HPV testing.
Okay.
And so because of that, it's expensive, it's limiting, it's not necessarily available to everyone.
Yeah. So pap smear, see and treat, because I didn't get the name.
Oh, yes.
I've never heard of it.
Yes, I actually have it as well. So
actually, they're called visual methods. Let me just make it easier, because the VIA means what? Visual inspection using acetone, and then VILI means visual inspection using iodine. Yes. So that's not as probably common in the urban areas, but definitely if you went out to our villages, far-flung, remote places, that's probably what's most likely going to be offered.
Okay. So then where does the vaccine
fit into this?
Yes.
Well, so the vaccine for cervical cancer, first of all, the novel thing about it is that this is the one cancer you can vaccinate against.
Yes.
You've never heard of that in anything. Yes. And this is because it is actually known to be caused specifically by a virus. So the vaccine targets the virus. Okay. And so there are about the human papilloma virus, there are about 100 subtypes. Not all of them cause cervical cancer. A lot of them naturally exist on our skin, on our scalp, our bodies, oral cavity. It's just that the specific ones, when they are in specific places, then can cause chaos. And so commonest, we know that HPV type 16 and 18 are the ones that are most commonly causing cervical cancer. And we do have several others that are high risk, though not as common. Then we have HPV subtype 6 and 11, which commonly cause genital warts. So other HPV strains are the ones that would cause polyps in the voice box. So musicians, you do have that risk. Okay. So those are different things. So the vaccine is made now to target several subtypes. And currently we are literally on our 3rd generation vaccine. So the first ones we have had, one was the Cervical vaccine, which is the most affordable, and it is targeting HPV subtype 16 and 18 only. So it's preventive for cervical cancer. Then we have Gardasil 4, which is subtype 6, 11, 16, and 18. And then we have now Gardasil 9, which is still strictly within the United States. Currently, it has added 5 more subtypes that cause cervical cancer. So the reason we vaccinate and target to vaccinate young girls is the idea behind trying to get you vaccinated before you are ever exposed to the HPV virus. And because the virus is sexually transmitted, then you understand why we want to catch them before they're sexually active. Yes, and the way it has been shown to work is that if you actually get it before exposure, it has more than 99% protection.
Okay.
That's
so
amazing.
It's not only like a first, it's not only like a first, like the only cancer that we can vaccinate, that we have a vaccine, but then it's a vaccine that works really well as well.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really great.
Yes, so what we say is that we don't know how great the protection would be if you've already been sexually active. And different studies have shown different things, anything from 54% to 65%. And that's why for people who are already sexually active, it's more optional. Do you want to take it knowing that it might not necessarily give you that great protection? But if you are not yet sexually active, then you know, even if you're 30 and you've never been sexually active, your chance of success is exactly like the 10-year-old. You understand? So in Kenya, our cutoff age for 10 is simply for government purposes of planning. Knowing that every year we have a certain cohort of girls who will become 10. And then now we can plan to vaccinate all those within that age group. And then also the fact that if you're below the age of 15, then you only need 2 shots. But if you're above the age of 15, then they go to 3. So of course it gets a bit more expensive. So it's just government planning and seeing how can we most effectively be able to take care of our entire population with the limited resources we have.
I think it's more, I guess people had like reservations around the age.
Like it became so political. I was so scared because everyone suddenly had all these things they wanted to say about the vaccine. I was like,
I guess it's just not understanding the breakdown of
just being able to break it down, like what is the rationale behind these decisions, so that then we make moms not be so scared of taking their kids. I have had moms who come in and say, okay, I'm gonna come with my whole brood, they're now teens, and let's get vaccinated together. So it's really cool.
I have to admit, I didn't understand the age thing, so I've never seen it as an option for me.
For you.
I've never looked at it as that, but then obviously if you're sexually active, then it's like, okay.
And the thing is that this is just new to Kenya. The vaccine has actually been in existence for 3 decades now. And the Scandinavian countries, for instance, they even vaccinate the boys. Because they're like, boys don't have a cervix, they don't get cervical cancer, but then they can pass on the virus from one girl to the next. So how do we completely break the chain of transmission?
Oh, wow.
So all of them get vaccinated.
I dare you to start that conversation
Why
in
haven't
this
you
country.
started?
Oh my
We
God.
are doing it right now, so we just need to start. Because I've actually had a few parents bring their sons and to say, yes, please. I mean, it's just, you see, the fact that the government vaccinates 10-year-olds is really just economic issues, you know? But the ideal is that all these people are eligible for vaccination. And so if you can afford to pay for it out of pocket,
and bring your sons,
go on and do it. You will be protecting somebody's daughter in future. And that's amazing.
That's
true.
And okay, so for me, what I've gone through twice, shockingly, is the pap smear. So before we get to exactly our experiences with pap smears, could you just explain exactly what a pap smear is and what one can expect when they go for a pap smear?
So it's a commonest screening that has been in existence for a long time. And to understand why we do a pap smear, then you have to understand how do we get to cancer in the first place. So the HPV virus is transmitted sexually. And that's why we say now we have to be very open-minded and think, what does sexual mean? Because when we say that, then everybody just thinks about heterosexual relationships, you know? But then we always have to look at what about those who may be in the LGBTQIA community.
Yeah.
What is their risk?
Yeah.
So we say, as long as you're going to have penetrative sex, contact sex, that's genital to genital, you are also at risk. And so it will be important to make sure that you're vaccinated. People who use sex toys that, God forbid, may be shared across board, you do have to think about that reality. And so everyone then falls within the same docket that if you have a cervix, we do need to look at it every once in a while. So once the virus gets into the cervix, it actually goes into the lining of the cervix. And it's because those cells are the ones that it's most comfortable in. And remember, viruses are very parasitic. They can't do anything for themselves. So they need to get into your body, incorporate themselves into your DNA, and use it to multiply. It's that process of using your own DNA to multiply that then can cause issues within your own DNA and kind of break down things here, mess up with stuff over there. So imagine you own an Airbnb and people come and go. Your cups are going to break at some point.
That's true.
So that's really the same analogy here. And so once this happens over time, sometimes the damage to your own DNA is so bad that your cell turns cancerous. And this isn't going to be an overnight process. We say on average, healthy people, it may take even 10 to 20 years from the initial infection to the transformation to full-blown cancer.
Okay.
It gives us 10 years to do something.
And I guess also that then is the issue. Maybe you can speak to that, because like, if for 10 years you're not feeling anything, you're like, well, we have this thing where we only go in to see doctors
when we're in pain. That's actually true.
If there's an inconvenience, so by the time, if at all, you do feel pain after the 10 years, if I'm coming in then,
not helpful.
And it's too late.
Exactly.
And in between the normal cervix to cancer cervix, in between here, there's a whole spectrum of abnormalities that we call the pre-cancer stage, which we can very easily, cheaply treat and reverse you back to normal cervix. You understand? So when we are screening, we're not looking for cancer. And this is what most women fear. They're like, I don't want to be told I have cancer. I'm like, hello, if I'm doing it at the right time, I'm not going to be telling you have cancer. I'm going to tell you that you definitely have an abnormality and we need to treat this abnormality. So this is what then the pap smear does. The brush basically just takes out a few cells and then we put those on a microscope and then we look at them and we want to see how does it look. Does your cell look normal? Does the nucleus of your cell look normal? Are the proportions as they should be? And if that's okay, see you next time, you know. And that's it. And we say a pap smear should be done at least every 3 years. However, we have special category people. Patients with HIV, they must be screened annually. This is because coexistence of the HIV virus and the HPV virus has been shown to accelerate this process. And for them, even within 5 years, they can actually go into full-blown cancer. So part of their, what we call their comprehensive care is actually annual screening. It's not for them, it's not a privilege for anyone to be screened, but for them, we are that close. Like we have to really monitor them very, very closely. So when does somebody start getting screened? We don't do your pap smear if you're a virgin. Hello, you have not had exposure. Can you go and take a break?
Breathe, relax.
Breathe and relax. But once you become sexually active, now we really need to start looking. So I'm just going to use a few models here. And this is really the female genital reproductive tract. This is actually made to scale. As long as you're not pregnant, this is how tiny your uterus really is. And this is your cervix. And this is your vaginal tract. So these are fallopian tubes and our ovaries, and that's the whole complete system. So when we're doing a pap smear, we're just brushing right there.
That's why it feels uncomfortable. It feels uncomfortable.
It feels like you're brushing a lot more. I know, but
your throat.
It's really pretty simple. So this is the pap smear brush. There are a few variations. Like there's one that's more like circular and with a brush on the side. And that's for the older women, because for the older women, we need to actually go into the cervix a little bit. And then this is our slide where we're going to put it, and then it goes to the lab. So essentially, this is supposed to just come there, and then we do that. That's really what it is.
That amount of time you've done it.
It's like 3 business days.
We actually do it 6 times.
Oh my God.
But it's like,
So when you push it there, you
Yeah.
do 1, 2, 3 until you go 6 times.
Yeah, that's why it feels like
So it feels
forever.
like it's really long.
Yes.
Some people actually don't feel it. Others feel like they're being tickled.
Yeah.
Others are just really uncomfortable. So everyone's different.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the most muscular and expandable part of your reproductive tract.
Mhm.
So it's collapsed, literally. And I have to see the cervix. So how am I going to see it when I cannot see it from outside?
It's the scariest tool I've ever seen in my life.
So there comes in my tools. So I need you to understand that there are actually different sizes.
Yeah.
This is much bigger.
Yeah,
this
that's
is smaller.
smaller.
We even have ttiny ones for girls.
Okay.
So this is a tool we use in many things. Okay, and it's not just for the pap smear. This is part of our armory as gynecologists that exists all the time.
Yeah.
So we use them based on the person. So if someone's, let's say, really big, we're more worried about when you go in and you open it up to see, then the vaginal wall tissues are more likely to collapse. So you're probably going to end up using a bigger one.
Okay.
Then for most moderate, tiny sized people like you, then this works. So they are color coded here.
Ah.
The bigger ones are always white. And
okay.
then the medium size is pink, and the tiny ones for the little children is yellow.
Okay.
Okay, so those ones, for them, we use them in theater, for instance, in issues of sexual abuse. You have to go in and take a look. So theirs are much smaller.
I'm already thinking about what if I break it?
I've only
Oh,
gotten
they
with
don't
this
break
one.
easy. They actually don't break easy. And then we usually put a lot of KY. Oh, you're gonna hold it. You're gonna know it's
I'm just
really hard.
remembering. So how do you
So it goes in with yes, closed. That's
Yeah.
close?
And then you open.
So when it's inside,
Yeah.
we have actually reached the end, then you open it up. So your cervix actually pops right through here. So you'll probably open it at most maybe up to somewhere there.
Okay.
And then we use this screw to kind of hold it. So when you have screwed it open, there, see? Then it just stays as wide as you need it to. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God. I'm holding my breath like it's
Okay, so
like
then when it's open, then now the brush.
Yes, so
Goes
now
in.
the brush goes
Goes
once
in.
this it kind of anchors it doesn't come off. Freeze
Yeah.
both my hands, then I can take the brush and I can take the sample, spread it on my glass, and then take this out. So we usually put KY jelly, just any lubricant that is water based,
Yeah.
so that then it slides a lot easily without being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I know everyone has a horror story. I'm first gonna hear yours, then we can discuss exactly how should it really feel.
Yeah. Maybe Gathoni, you go first.
But mine wasn't really horrific.
Yeah.
But maybe also because I was pretty young and naive.
Yeah.
And it happened a year before my pregnancy. And so like discomfort and just wanting it to end. The doctor was saying all of these things and all I did was block him and block him and block him. And then he was done. And I'm like, do I ever want to feel like that again?
Yeah.
No. So my experience was a lot of discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not knowing, just wanting it to be done.
So
and
we
I'm
could get out of there.
Yes.
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 I think for me, I've done a pap smear twice, and the first time I don't know whether I'd done research or in my head I just assumed it's just the brush. So I was like, okay, it's definitely going to be uncomfortable, but come on, I
it's
can
just a
hack this,
brush.
right? So when I go in and I see, so I didn't have the metal one; it was these plastic things. I'm like, what's that? What's happening here? Really? And so when the nurse was telling me it's not just like the brush that goes in. I think why my first pap smear lasted very long is like most of the time was her convincing me like it's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let me think. And then she comes. I'm like, okay, wait. Let me relax. And it was just, she was very patient with me, God bless her. But I think I was not prepared well. Like there was no good understanding of what could happen because now when she put, what is it called?
The speculum.
The speculum. When she put in the speculum, if I knew that was going to happen, my mind would already
be ready for it
and would rationalize that discomfort as, oh, that's a speculum. Oh, this is now happening. But because I was not prepared, I was just like...
All I remember my doctor telling me is just relax. Just relax.
But she also told me like breathe out.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to breathe out. I'm like, no. And like you leave there and you're always like, we have to be friends now.
You know.
You know too much.
So I was just like, oh my God, when do I need to come back? Like I really don't want to know. But I also think I had that misconception that you're testing for cancer.
Yeah.
So in my head, that was all. I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, just focus.
You know,
There's a bigger picture here.
Yeah.
Just not only the brush, but just hanging there. But I was not prepared. It was very uncomfortable. I'm not sure if it was pain because in that moment, I think like the discomfort, your mind is ready for pain, but it's not.
It's not pain.
It's not pain, but it's also not.
It's discomfort.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, but what I know was lacking was information. I didn't know that there was more than the brush.
I think that's really the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like, ideally, you are supposed to give us consent to do the procedure. And consent is not consent if it's not informed.
Yeah.
So even if you're not signing, it's
That's
important that I tell you, this is what I'm going to do. This is what the process will entail. This is what you're probably going to feel. And then that way, as you said, your mind is prepared for it. And then you should never force this in. Now, the moment you force it in is how the patient never comes back.
Yeah.
So I always advise women, please, whatever happens, don't take your first pap smear during the mass testing drives. Why? Because there's 300 women waiting to be tested.
Yes,
and everyone is in a rush.
Yeah.
So there's no time for the nurse to have this easy conversation.
Like,
Yes, exactly.
Goes we're out. Next.
You know it? Shove, you know?
Yeah.
Because the
Oh
thing
my
is
God.
that once you put it right at the opening, like right there,
Yeah.
what usually happens is that the patient's gonna do this.
Yeah.
And that's normal. So the whole idea is that you have to give them time to relax. And believe me, every woman will if you just give them enough time.
Yeah.
Even if you're busy screaming, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
At some point, imagine,
You
through
relax.
all that,
Yeah.
your body will give.
Yeah.
And we always feel, once you relax and we give, it starts to slide in.
Yeah.
So be easy and slow. The whole pap smear thing is really hinged on this going in comfortably. The rest, many people don't even get to know what's going on once this went in.
I think in closing, I just want to also know if it's 100% preventable, why then do we still have so many women
Who have cancer?
who have cancer, and then we lose so many women? So let's say in Kenya,
Yeah.
we lose what? Just over
We're
3,000 women
We're losing a year. More
per
than
year.
8,000 women a year.
That's a lot.
So
Actually, more than 8,000 women.
more than 8,000. So where's the disconnect? Is
The
it
disconnect.
myth? Is it because I know one myth is people think like pap smears or the vaccine is going to make you infertile and things like that. I don't know if it's that, or is it just anything to do with our sexual reproductive health we don't want to talk about? So
it's a whole bag of all those things. We just summarize it and say cervical cancer is a disease of poverty. If you are in the UK, for instance, and you are covered under their national health scheme, you do not get to not go for a pap smear. Your primary doctor will remind you and remind you and remind you that you're eligible for your pap smear.
And you need to
Why?
go.
Where are you?
Yeah.
And you could actually get, you know, the way Australia fines you for refusing to vote?
Yeah.
They can actually fine you for not turning up for your screening. Why? Because the cost of screening vis-a-vis the cost of treating you for cancer, you cannot even compare. Scandinavian countries that have been vaccinating for the last 2 to 3 decades, they don't know what cervical cancer is. Their doctors come here to see it because they've never seen it. And there's no country that can show you this disparity better than the United States. Because those who have access to Medicare and Medicaid and they're able to get their screening, their vaccinations and everything, you will never hear of cervical cancer. But then those who have no medical care, you can see.
Yeah.
I mean, their cancer rates are not as low for a first world country. So it's really a disease of poverty. And in our setup, we know what happens with poverty. It breeds a lot of myths. We're more likely to want to go to Miti Shamba instead of go to the hospital. You go to a hospital, you find one harassed nurse who has 18 women to screen in 1 hour. And then she's definitely too stressed out to even be nice. And then people are like, I'm not going. Then, you know, she's so frazzled and everyone's like, that woman has a bad attitude. I'm not going. So we're really dying of poverty. that if we were able to actually have the space to regard reproductive health with the power with which we should, how is it we vaccinate literally 90% of our babies in this country against our
I know.
child
Why
vaccination?
can't we do the same for,
Exactly, and that's why we have actually said this has to be incorporated as part of childhood vaccines.
Yeah.
You understand? And those childhood vaccines are accessible to every child because the government has paid for it. So for many years, the government didn't pay. And now it's finally paying, and we are up against, you know, people, proponents of no, do not vaccinate. Oh, this is going to make you infertile. Oh, it's really caused a lot of grief. But I mean, speaking to moms out there, we are not on that boat. But our daughters are on that boat. We need to dissociate. Just because it is a sexually transmitted infection does not mean morality comes in. Because that's one of the challenges, especially those who are coming with a faith-based context, are really pushing. That your children are not going to be moral, they're not going to be sleeping around with many men, so they're not going to get the cervical HPV infection. As long as they stay virgins, they get married virgins. Hello.
Those two conversations
should not be in the same room.
The same table.
It's unfortunate though.
Our biggest challenge. That there's a whole lot more to this education than the sexual act. Because we have, and see, for me, I keep saying why it must be taught in an organized environment is for the simple reason that your mom was never taught to have this conversation. So whatever she taught you, she was fumbling along the way.
Barely taught.
Absolutely. If she did at all, you understand? So if she didn't teach you, how are you going to have this conversation with your daughter? So you understand why we need a structured environment through which all kids go through. We can be assured that they will have a chance to be exposed to this. And that's why it can only be enshrined in school.
And you demystify it so they can ask those questions.
Absolutely. They'll probably make their parents very uncomfortable. But that's, and I always tell my page, if you bring me a teenager and we're going to go through adolescent sexual and reproductive health, you best know that it's going to make you very, very uncomfortable. And at some point, you also need a session on your own to understand how to handle this child and the curiosities that they ask. So we didn't teach parents. And now we want them to teach their children so that it's not the responsibility of the state. And we think that we are going to break this chain of all the things we hope to stop. It won't work.
All right, so I have learned a lot. I've seen my enemies. I'm so thankful to both of you for coming. Dr. Nelly, of course, you broke down everything very well.
Thank you.
And it helps that even this is to scale. So you actually see exactly what's going to happen when you go for your pap smear. And Gathoni, of course, so graciously came, shared about her first experience as well. I'm very thankful.
Thank you.
I think what I will end with is these words, which is why I went for the first one. Well, actually, the first one sour, but the second one after the first one was traumatic. My late mom always used to say, so she passed away from cancer, but breast cancer, but she always used to say, early detection is the best prevention. So if you can get screened, do it as quick as you can, and at the same time, because yes, we do have privilege, these conversations need to keep happening, just so that then we put pressure on the offices that are meant to serve us to actually serve the women who come from low economic backgrounds as well. But parting shot, early detection, best prevention. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more information, head over to kizazichetu.com.